The city of Pocatello, situated in the northwestern state of Idaho, is predominantly composed of members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It is known for being a safe, close, and tight-knit community. For over a century, Pocatello has served as the gateway to the Northwest, attracting tourists, travelers, and residents who take pride in calling it home. However, in 2006, Pocatello became the focal point of one of the most horrific and disturbing murders in modern U.S. history. Just 4 days before Christmas in 1989, Cassie Jo Stoddart was born. She grew up in a secure and loving family who adored her. Cassie was a dedicated, straight-A student who stayed out of trouble, had many friends, and was on the right path in life. Known for her reliability and trustworthiness, her aunt and uncle, Allison and Frank Contreras, asked her to house-sit and watch their pets while they were out of town. On the evening of September 22, 2006, Cassie went to the house on Whispering Cliffs Drive in northeast Bannock County. She invited her boyfriend, Matt Beckham, over at around 6 p.m. Later in the evening, her school friends, Brian Draper and Tori Adamczyk, who also attended Pocatello High School, came by. After giving them a tour of the house, they all settled in to watch a movie. The teens were halfway through Kill Bill Volume 2 when Brian and Tori decided to leave, claiming they were going to the cinema instead. Cassie and Matt continued relaxing when, without warning, the power went out. Cassie became uneasy, but the power soon returned. Matt noticed one of the dogs staring down the basement stairs, barking and growling, but he thought nothing of it. Matt called his mother to ask if he could stay with Cassie since she felt unsafe. His mother said no, but offered for Cassie to stay with them instead. Cassie declined, feeling obligated to stay as she had been asked to look after the house by her family. Around 10:30 p.m., Matt's mother arrived to pick him up. Matt called Brian and Tori to see if they wanted to meet up, but Tori was whispering, making it difficult for Matt to hear him. Matt ultimately decided to go home. 2 days later, on Sunday, Cassie's family returned to the house on Whispering Cliffs Drive. Upon entering, Cassie's 13-year-old cousin discovered a horrific and traumatizing scene. Cassie had been brutally stabbed to death in a frenzied attack, her body found on the living room floor. Police swiftly arrived at the scene and secured the area. An autopsy revealed that Cassie had suffered approximately 30 stab wounds, with 12 of them potentially fatal. 3 days after Cassie's body was discovered, the police made arrests in connection with her murder, sending shockwaves through the tight-knit community. Brian Draper and Tori Adamczyk were taken into custody and subjected to police interrogation, leaving people stunned. These were not just classmates but trusted friends whom Cassie had enjoyed spending time with. Both boys were seen as social outsiders, but Cassie had warmly welcomed and befriended them. Brian had spent much of his early life in Utah before moving to Pocatello, where he met Tori at Pocatello High School. They bonded over their shared passion for film, often using a camera to document various aspects of their lives, with Cassie frequently appearing in their recordings. On September 27th, after extensive interrogation, Brian Draper agreed to lead officers to where he and Tori Adamczyk had disposed of the items used in Cassie's murder. Among these items were black fingerless gloves, several knives, a partially burned mask, a Sony videotape, and a partially burned handwritten note. A chilling realization began to form. This was not a crime of impulse but a meticulously planned and carried out act, a dark fantasy turned horrific reality. As the investigation progressed, more disturbing evidence emerged against Brian and Tori. Investigators found footage of the pair filming Cassie at school on the morning of the murder. They also discovered videos where Brian and Tori discussed their plans with unsettling enthusiasm. The full horror of what happened to Cassie Jo Stoddart that night had finally come to light. While at the house, Cassie had given Brian and Tori a tour that included the basement. Before they left, Brian unlocked a door to ensure they could return unnoticed later. After pretending they were going to the cinema, they left the house and returned to the neighborhood, parking down the street. They left their car and donned dark clothes, gloves, and masks before returning to the house. Sneaking in through the unlocked basement door, they cut the power at the circuit breaker, enveloping the house in darkness. Hoping to lure Cassie and Matt downstairs, They restored power when their plan didn't work. The dog, growling and staring at the basement, had already sensed their presence. When Matt called, Tori whispered to avoid detection. Once they were sure Matt had left, they cut the power again. Brian's tactic of slamming a door upstairs was intended to frighten Cassie. They then subjected her to a horrifying ordeal before brutally stabbing her to death. The disturbing details did not stop there. The police soon found the following footage.
I just killed Cassie. We just left her house. This is not a fucking joke.
I'm shaking.
I stabbed her in the throat and I saw her lifeless body just disappear. Dude, I just killed Cassie. Oh, fuck. That felt like it wasn't even real. I mean, it went by so fast.
Shut the fuck up. We gotta get our act straight.
Okay.
Tori Adamczyk and Brian Draper, two seemingly unremarkable 16-year-old boys, were charged with first-degree murder. During the interviews, the boys turned on each other. Brian initially claimed that while he had been present during Cassie's murder, it was Tori who had actually stabbed her. He later confessed to stabbing Cassie, but insisted it was at Tori's behest. As the trial commenced, Pocatello became the focal point of a national media frenzy. Journalists from across the country converged to cover this disturbing case. The court was presented with damning video footage, and spectators watched in stunned silence as they witnessed how Brian Draper and Tori Adamczyk had meticulously planned their crime and the sadistic pleasure they took in murdering their classmate and friend. One question that haunted many was the motive behind such a heinous act. Brian Draper admitted to being inspired by Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, infamous for their role in the Columbine High School massacre in 1999. Tori Adamczyk, on the other hand, cited influence from the classic horror film Scream, where victims are terrorized before being brutally attacked. On April 17, 2007, Brian Draper was found guilty, followed by Tori Adamczyk less than 2 months later. They were both convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Additionally, they received 30 years to life for conspiracy to commit murder. The legality of their life sentences has been under review due to the Supreme Court's ruling in Miller v. Alabama, which deemed mandatory life sentences without parole for juveniles unconstitutional. Despite filing several appeals against their convictions, none have been successful thus far. Currently, both are serving their sentences at the Idaho State Correctional Institution. In the years following Cassie's murder, Brian Draper and Tori Adamczyk have been subjects of several documentaries detailing their crime. Tori Adamczyk was even interviewed for an episode of the true crime show Justice. Interestingly, Tori had been a suspect in the stabbing death of a woman in her own Pocatello home just 2 years before Cassie's murder. However, DNA evidence eventually cleared Tori of involvement in that case. During the investigation, police delved deeper into Tori's background. A telephone interview with Brian Draper provided further insights into Tori's personality, revealing disturbing details that shed light on his character.
Did Tori ever show you any knives that he collected or kept at his house?
Yeah, I think he probably had like 4 or 5 knives in his closet, and he used to show them to me.
Hey Brian, did he ever talk to you about like mutilating animals or things like that?
Yeah, he used to talk about how he used to kill cats. I'd be hanging out with him wherever, and he'd take his cat and he'd like choke his cat, you know what I mean, a little bit. He's like, watch this. And I'm like, okay. He said that he killed a cat by, he buried it inside the ground except its head was exposed and he ran over it with a lawnmower or whatever.
Shannon, Tori Adamczyk's mother, wrote a book titled The Guilty Innocent, which provides a behind-the-scenes look at her son's trial. In the book, she argues that the prosecutors prioritized public opinion over truth. She criticizes the defense team, composed of lawyers who had never handled a murder case before, claiming they lacked the necessary experience to effectively advocate for her son. In 2010, Cassie's family pursued a civil claim against the Idaho School District, alleging that Brian and Tori had posed a foreseeable danger and that the school had been negligent in addressing it. However, both the civil court and the state Supreme Court dismissed their claim, ruling that the actions of Brian and Tori were not reasonably foreseeable. The impact of Cassie Jo Stoddart's murder on her family has been profound and enduring. The day she was discovered in her aunt and uncle's home, the family left and never returned. Although the police assisted in cleaning the crime scene and providing temporary housing, the family could not bring themselves to re-enter the house. Despite their efforts to sell the property, they have been unable to find a buyer. Throughout this ordeal, Cassie's devastated family has not only sought justice, but also endeavored to ensure that Cassie, remembered for her brightness, humor, and diligence, will never be forgotten.